So I absolutely bombed my first street lifting meet. What's up guys, my name is Spencer. I go by Calisthenics on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm a calisthenics athlete and personal trainer based in New York City. You know, really, I've always loved skills. That's always been my thing. And street lifting for me has really been a means to an end to build strength. One of my friends suggested that I sign up for the street lifting competition about a month ago. So with essentially like 1 month notice, I signed up and decided to go for it. Prep. How did the prep go? Now, I'll be honest, the prep for me was like mostly concerned about losing weight and getting to the point where I didn't have to do a water cut because I had, you know, like a 2-hour window in between weigh-ins and lifts. So really like my whole prep was getting used to the sport, like learning the commands, getting used to doing like 1 rep maxes for dips especially, because that was kind of newer to me. And then really just like getting my body ready for the competition. All right, so competition day. So we started with pulls. Now they're called pull-ups, but you're allowed to do either supinated or pronated grip. So I did supinated, you know, a chin-up grip. This is how I was training the past month. So pulls actually started pretty good. My first attempt was 52.5 kg. Here you can kind of see like an indication of where the issue started. The reason this was an issue is that for attempt selection, you know, really you're supposed to do a very easy weight for your first one. People say conventionally you're supposed to do a weight that you feel like you can do for 3, but this is my first competition and I was feeling pretty good. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna start higher than that. So in training, I'd gotten 55 kg, but I bent my leg a little to the point that it probably would have been a no rep, and I had failed 60 kg. My thought was that my max was somewhere in between there. And for my starting rep, I wanted to start with 52.5. You know, this is the lift of 52.5 kg. Went up very well. You know, I almost got chest to bar. It was like kind of your textbook perfect attempt. So for the second one, this is where things started to get a little more dicey. So like I said, I had hit 55 kg in training and I had failed 60 kg in training. So my goal for this comp was to hit 60. Essentially for my second attempt, I went right for it and I essentially chose 60, which looking back really was not a smart move. I went very slow and controlled, and I've been doing this pretty much all throughout this competition. Reason why is like I know I can get more weight up the more quickly I can go. That's usually the case for anyone, in fact. But I was very worried about like getting no reps. The thing at the top of my mind was having the cleanest form possible, because I know that I'm someone who's done like a lot of weighted pull training, but not weighted pull training with that competition form. So that's why I was kind of like hyper focused about the form, and I should have been a little more hyper focused on the attempt selection. For this second rep, this pull of 60 here, I was pulling very slow and controlled, and I pretty much got stuck, you know, right below the top of the rep. So this shows kind of how green I was to street lifting. I completely forgot the fact that once you choose a weight for your attempt, you can't go down. So I had hit 52.5, I failed 60, and then I tried to go put an attempt in of 57.5, and the official's like, dude, you can't do that. So at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm stuck with 60, whatever, we're gonna send it. I was talking to the other guys in my weight class. They were pretty much just like, yo, pull quicker. I was like, I know this should work, but I don't think it's gonna work. You know, I was kind of like in my head, competition day nerves or whatever. The reason I was so nervous was because, like I said, I thought I was gonna get no repped if I went for 60 with that like really sort of like fast pull. But anyway, I went for it, and to honestly everyone's surprise, like I don't think anyone in the whole gym thought I was gonna hit it after I failed it. But I actually hit 60 on my third attempt, which I was like so hyped about. Like that was my goal. That was like the PR I was going for. And at that point, you know, I was halfway through, I hit it, and I'm like, all right, I'm feeling good. So then we moved on to dips, and this is where the real fun started. So just a little background on me. I've always been pull dominant. You can see this if you look at my content. Plenty of front lever stuff, plenty of like muscle up, slow muscle up stuff. But my gap in my skill set is really my push strength. Long-winded ways of saying that, you know, the dip was like a real weak point for me. Dip attempt selection. Why did I choose what I chose? One thing I have to say about this is like the whole idea of dipping with these sleeves is like completely different, because it adds like 10 to 12 kilo, they say, for the full stiff ones. I am fully aware of the fact that I can dip way more with these on than I could ever do naturally. But the other thing is I haven't really trained a ton with them. So anyway, a lot of this prep was kind of like me figuring out my 1 rep max with dip sleeves in and of themselves, because it's a different piece of equipment. So I had done a heavy single session a week or 2 before comp. Really, it was to like figure out what my attempts were gonna be day up. I actually was able to hit 67.5 kilos with the dip sleeves on. Even though the rep itself was a grinder, I genuinely felt like I could hit more. Like I felt like I had 70 in me that day, but I stopped a little short just because I wanted to preserve myself a little. This all went into my attempt selection day of the comp. So obviously I wanted to start a little lighter than my max, but full disclosure, I was thinking about going straight for 67.5. I decided, let me pare it down a little bit, and I started with 65. I figured if I'd gotten 67.5, that 65, you know, would be like a good sort of first heavy single. So here's my first lift. So you can see, like, this is the epitome of a grinder right here. Unfortunately, my friend who was recording kind of cut off the beginning, which is actually what shows the no rep. So the no rep here was actually that I started too early. So you're supposed to come off the box, and then essentially the judge will say start, and that's when you're supposed to lower, and I lowered before the judge said start. Either way, you can see kind of how shaky this is. Like, I probably could have got called a no rep for loss of control anyway, so I'm not, like, you know, super upset about this. But anyway, this is where things started to really unravel. After that 62.5 no rep, that's when I really started shitting bricks. I just knew, like, how badly it moved, and I wasn't fully confident that it was gonna go up again. And honestly, I ended up being right. So here's the second attempt here. Honestly, guys, like, this is really hard to look back on and watch, just in terms of, like, the sheer struggle and just tough to watch yourself fail. And then here's the third rep. You know, I took my socks and my shirt off in between in hopes that, like, the 0.25 kilo that spared would make some sort of difference. And I almost got closer, but it didn't work, you know, so it didn't get up there. Since this was the classic format for street lifting, and I didn't get any successful attempts on the dip, that pretty much disqualifies me. The reason I was so disappointed about that was because I was actually really proud of the pull, and I was super proud of the way that I failed 60 and then came back and hit 60. When I go for a heavy single, especially on pull-ups, if I don't hit it on that first one, it's extremely rare that I'm gonna hit it the second time. So I was, like, so happy, and then it pretty much all went to nothing. The reason I'm so bummed with myself is because multiple people told me, like, be careful with your attempt selection for your first attempt, make it something easier. And at the end of the day, I just didn't listen, and that's on me. Street lifting is more of a niche sport, especially here in the US. I was kind of explaining the rules to my parents, and I'm like, you know, if I even just dipped with, like, 2.5 kilo on me, at least my numbers would count for something. At least there'd be, you know, something in the record book. But now having to live with the fact that I depleted myself, I trained for this for a month, I really, you know, put a lot of things on hold, I made personal sacrifices, and then to have your results be completely invalidated because of just, like, a stupid strategic mistake just feels awful. Let's say I had gotten all the dips up, but I had gotten no reps on all three of them for some form issues. I'm sure I'd be pretty disappointed, but at the end of the day, I will have known that, like, I sort of did everything in my power to really do that. But the fact that I made such a strategic mistake with this, you know, means that my game plan was wrong from the get-go. So look, at the end of the day, guys, if you're gonna sign up for a competition or you're gonna go into a new sport that you don't have a ton of experience with, you gotta respect the sport. I was very respectful to all my mentors, all my training partners. That's one thing I'm actually super thankful for this, is all the people that I met throughout this. Shout out to USA Streetlifting New York, shout out to Uptown Strength in Harlem. Like, you guys really meant a lot to me. Anyway, what I was saying was, like, I was respectful of my mentors, all the people I met, and I was respectful of the forum and, like, the meta in that regards, but I just wasn't respectful of the game plan of the sport and how things are done. And at the end of the day, that's my fault. You know, now I gotta live with it. Gonna take some time now to sort of reflect on all this and see what's next. Just wanted to really thank you guys for making it to the end of the video. I do have a lot more to come. I'm planning on dropping a full front lever tutorial. I'm also planning on dissecting the cut that I did for the street lifting meet. So if you want to see some of that, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and get ready for the next video.